Well, hello, my name's Andy Tidy and welcome back to another edition of Canal Hunter. Last week we covered the line of the canal through from Chasewater Reservoir all the way through to Aldridge, by which time we ran out of time. This episode we're following the old line of the Daw End Branch Canal from Aldridge Wharf, which you see behind me, through to the limestone workings at Daw End and at Hay Head, but which you probably better known as Longwood. Up till now we've been following the line of the national cycle route, but that comes to an end as you approach Aldridge. Here the canal towpath is pretty much left to its own devices, as is the navigation channel, and both go off quite badly, but you'll see that later on. Aldridge, in spite of being semi-enclosed by canal, pretty much turns its back on this old waterway. It runs within half a mile of the town centre, but there are no moorings here, and I've never seen a boat stop anywhere near Aldridge Wharf. I suppose in part that is because the canal served the industries of Aldridge and not the rather pleasant village side of it. It runs on the western side of Aldridge, which is on the western side of the Clayhanger Fault. That means it ran through the area dominated with clay works and with collieries and ultimately the limestone workings. And even today the canal sits precariously on its contour. Now, our destination is Longwood Junction and the top of the Rushall Locks. So I hope you enjoy this episode and I'll give you a bit of a commentary as we ride along. Aldridge was a real town of the Industrial Revolution. It grew exponentially. In 1801, about the time the canal was built, there were just 700 people living in the village. By the time we got to 1900, that number had grown to about 2,000. The combination of the massive amount of colliery work and brickworks meant this was one very devastated area. Perhaps the scale of devastation in this immediate vicinity is best summed up in a report prepared in 1950 for a meeting of the British Association in Birmingham, and I'll read this out to you. It said the area is more extensively disfigured, perhaps, than any other area of comparable size in the Black Country. It consists of pools caused by subsidence, derelict pitmans, clay quarries and brickworks. Well, it's not much like that these days. So we're at Hopley's Bridge. Now, Helen and I often used to joke about Hopley's Bridge, used to refer to it as Nigel's Bridge, on account of one of our friends in the town whose name is Nigel Hopley. Well, imagine my surprise when one day I was out walking with Nigel and he says to me, "Oh Andy, did you know my grandfather, he lived next to the canal. In fact, one of the bridges is named after him." So it is indeed Nigel's Bridge. Now Nigel's Bridge, or should I say Hopley Bridge, actually represents another change in the local geology. Here we make a transition from the Etruria marls and the shallow coal, and we make a transition to Carboniferous limestone, which actually was the original raison d'etre of this branch canal. You see, from time immemorial, well, let's say the Romans, mining has gone on in this area, taking out limestone. There have been bits of Hayhead limestone found in the construction of the Roman camp at Wall, a few miles away. So what did the Romans ever do for us? Well, they discovered limestone here in Daw End and at Hayhead, and that was a discovery which was exploited on a gigantuan scale during the Industrial Revolution. Now, the area of limestone I'm talking about is actually very small. It's only 2 miles by 3 miles, but it's absolutely punctuated with old limestone workings. The main one being at Daw End and the other at Hayhead. And this move from the coal measures and the clay to the limestone also brings with it stability to the strata that underlie the canal. And as a result, from Hopley's Bridge onwards, you start to find the re-emergence of the classic canal humpback bridge. Instead of building those flat top bridges which could be jacked up when they needed, they simply built the old-fashioned humpback bridge, which was stable and cheap and could carry great weights. Now, the largest limestone mining area is known as the Linley Mines, or the Blue Hole Estate. It was BCN owned, and it stretched from the railway aqueduct all the way along to the Jackal Weir on the right hand side of the canal as you're going south. It was here that for centuries they dug down deeper and deeper, sometimes 200 and 300 feet, in order to get at the 30-foot seam of ultra fine limestone. These days it's a lovely water park with pretty lakes in the middle, but this site continued to work on and off all the way through until the 1960s and supported the small community of Daw End. And I mentioned that this was a very defined area. The limestone also continues all the way up almost to the top of Bar Beacon. Given the depth of the cave workings here, one of its more unusual uses was as a munitions store during World War II. But water ingress was always a problem, and in the end that particular role was abandoned. While Linley was the largest limestone quarry, Hayhead held the prize for being of the best quality. And in another one of those circular twists of the story, John Iron Mad Wilkinson, who we met all the way back in Braidley, he held a share in the Hayhead quarry. And I suspect it was Iron Mad Wilkinson who also massively supported the extension of the canal through to reach his mine workings. Advertisements from the time proudly proclaim that the Birmingham Canal was built using exclusively Hayhead lime. their substance of choice to glue together locks, bridges and wharves. And so perhaps it's a testimony to the quality of the minerals extracted here that the entire BCN network has remained as well preserved as it has after 250 years. We've now passed the Manor Arms, an old quarriers' and boatmen's pub, still worth a visit if ever you come through this area. And the section out from here to Hay Head was the last bit to be built. Apparently its construction was delayed due to uncertainty following John Wilkinson's death. Well, eventually it was built, but it was built at a time when money was short. So it was built to minimalist dimensions. The surface width is a mere 37 feet, and that's the technical width. It's nowhere near that wide now. And to boot, it was shallow. It didn't have the mining subsidence to help keep it deep. So even today, as you make your way between the Manor Arms and Longwood Lock, you find your progress slows to glacial pace, and you spend your entire time looking at the back of your boat thinking there must be something on my propeller. But there isn't. It's just unbelievably shallow and unbelievably narrow, and progress is correspondingly slow. Talking of progress, because so many of you like to come out on your bikes to explore these routes, it's worth mentioning that the route from Brownhills to Aldridge is part of the National Cycle Route, so it's well made up and it's pretty dry and nice and firm. But when you progress beyond Aldridge and you come out here towards Longwood, the towpath is very much in its raw, natural state. It's narrow and it's muddy, and today I've already fallen off once, luckily into the hedge, not the water. So let's press on to Hay Head to complete this section of our journey, taking coal from Hensford all the way to its market in East Birmingham. Made it to Longwood Junction, the end of today's marathon, all the way down from Chasewater Reservoir, through Catshill Junction, through the coalfields and through the tileries and the brickworks of Aldridge, the limestone workings of Daw End, and finally out here to Hay Head at the foot of Barbeacon. We've made it to safe moorings, a water point and a nearby pub, so we're all good. Our coal is safe and we're on schedule to get this delivery all the way out to the old BSA factory at the top of the Camp Hill Locks. me is the top of a flight of 9 locks on the Rushall Canal that will take us down to join with the Tame Valley near the M5-M6 junction. That is another canal, and that is another day's story. So, we've reached the end of this episode. Hope you've enjoyed it. See you soon. Happy hunting and cheerio. Okay, that's very nearly the end. I just thought you might like to see the state that I got in on today's ride. And the state of the bike. All I can say is it was worth it. So, cheers, happy hunting.